Okay, hello everyone. We are back for another 13.1 Wilson Language Design Review, looking at, well, trees, geography, astronomy. All right, let's start with trees. This looks like a long review.
It is. It's a multi. It's most likely It is multi meeting review.
Okay. All right. Fine. Okay. Is Ian going to speak to the trees stuff?
Sure. So the primary new thing in 13.1 is that we now have the full design of tree implemented, and consequently, we can import all kinds of things like XML and notebook faithfully into trees.
Do you have an example of that?
If you look at the documentation for expression tree.
What we hope to get is more processing of those.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Can you update your documentation? I should have reminded you.
Yeah. Okay. This is crazy the way this works. This is just freaking crazy. Sorry, I'm just same mistake as multiple times before. Okay. Okay, here we go. All right. So
can you drag it over to the screen? Or
which?
I thought you were open.
Oh, I'm just doing documentation update.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But let's get some scope here. I mean, a lot of the stuff we've already reviewed in some detailed trees meetings, correct?
Yes. So the redesigned expression tree stuff we've discussed a little bit.
Okay, so there's a bunch of new stuff. I would like to get scope for everything we're talking about here, rather than let's not drill too deep on trees right now, because we've had several meetings. I mean, we need to look at these, but I just want to make sure we don't end this meeting without having looked at a little bit at things like astronomy that we haven't looked at all. Okay, so where's XML tree? What the heck is that creature? So this is the beginning of an XML symbolic tree. Yeah.
Well, so this supports all symbolic XML expressions.
Okay, but if I were to say import and I were to say comma tree in the importer, is there an import element for tree yet or not?
Not yet.
Okay, why do we think that this is the right way to represent this as a tree?
So at each node in the document, you have tags that can have attributes.
So I understand that claim. I mean, so is that kind of, when we think about an XML document, I mean, this notion of tag and the list of tag and attribute list.
I think it's roughly right, but I would like to sort of defer until we see some processing of it too, because if it's not easy to process,
yeah, I agree.
I'm not sure it's the right representation.
And I mean, XML element is the kind of thing that might happen at that node as well, rather than this list. Because what you've done is you've taken out XML element and you've turned it into a list.
Well, I've taken the first two elements of the XML element and used that as the data. And then the list of sub-elements gets turned into trees.
I understand. But what's happening there is a little weird, because what it really is this is the node. Well, see, this is a weird thing. This attribute of the node is a different kind of concept than we've had for trees elsewhere. Right?
Well, it's really just two pieces of data.
I know, but it's two pieces of data with a different, of a different character, because at some level, when you read the XML, it's tag, 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 and then there is an attribute, but that is sort of a footnote to the tag in a sense. Whereas here, it's being given very much the same weight as the tag.
This is perhaps a
Yes.
formatting issue.
Well, I don't know whether it's
Like if
formatting.
this, so in this version, we also have lots of like detailed control over all of the options. And so maybe we could have a label function that renders this as actual XML strings.
Right. Look, we're going to spend our whole time on trees here. I really want to do trees, but I really want to see what else there is here. Can we go? Because let's keep
do
going.
whatever you feel like. Browse
Yeah, let's
all the way through.
keep going on things that I think are going to be easier. Okay, that's just great. There's nothing to discuss here. That's just great. Now I'm assuming that you also managed to get let's see, if I say date range.
Speed up is a little more than 100x. That's what we approximated it, but now we have measurements. So, but it's in that. It's not a
Oh, wow,
fast.
that was nice and fast.
Yeah.
There was no slowdown for formatting those things.
Yeah, the typesetting should be faster as well. That one wasn't a specific line item here, but it's something we improved along the way.
Okay, good stuff. So is this done with the compiler, or how is this done?
Right now, it was done just through streamlining the generation of date strings and the way that they're stored inside the typesetting and within the date object itself. So we remember certain elements and we can regenerate them quickly. There is ground to be gained there. We're hoping to get date string parsing and date string generation even faster in a lot of places, but it's faster than it has been.
Great. And this is also affect interpreter and things like that. Is that correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a number of different pipelines. We've added a couple of things for a lot of common cases. Edge cases get complicated, so we have.
I don't think if it takes a little bit extra to do Julian dates and the whatever.
Right. Yeah, that's fine. We want to make sure that the mainline date functions are fast. We've been trying to streamline each element of date object, and then arithmetic was the big thing.
Good.
This
I saw some horrible things recently with date histogram and its tick choices, which may or may not be related to anything you're dealing with. That was not in 13.1. So just somebody should look at date histogram and its tick choices because they seemed insane.
Got a note of that.
Okay.
This is just showing the improvement. We're 2 orders of magnitude, close to 3 orders of magnitude for base
that's
operations. And
okay. I got to look at these because it's such a good thing. Well, look at all those zeros. Wonderful. Great.
This is like candy.
Yeah, indeed. Right. It's great. Nobody ever complains when you make it faster.
Right.
Okay. New method, continuous versus discrete date. Okay, so we discussed these options for a while, had we not?
Yep. Yeah. So we went back and forth on the names. There's documentation on both the date difference and date plus ref pages that break down what they are. We tried to get some illustrations that also make it a little more apparent.
See, I've now learned Roger's trick for actually opening these pages. It's really good. Okay, so
so remember first the difference between continuous and discrete arithmetics, which is whether you want to add 3 months as the quantity of time or 3 calendar months.
Yes, I understand.
So that's the first difference. And then when you are dealing with discrete arithmetic, we have several cases, because the important thing is what happens when you end up with a date that doesn't exist, like the 30th of February. Like you are adding the 30th of January plus a month. What's that?
Yep.
And then you have to decide what to do at the end. And this
What's
is
the
where
default?
The default is to roll backwards. That's what we've done traditionally, is the last existing date is what we go back to. So you add a month to the 30th of January.
Even when you're subtracting, even when you did a date plus that's a negative offset.
Yep. Yeah. So it rolls back to the prior one. And one of the things that was slightly inconsistent is that our date normalization, so if you put February 30th inside date list, that one rolled over, but arithmetic rolled backwards, and there was no method for rolling forward. So now we have the granularity control, how you want to handle those cases.
Good.
And some of this is housekeeping. We fixed some precision handling and absolute time. We also reworked the time zone handling code so that time zone specifications can be used consistently through the language. You can give a location as a time zone anywhere, and we'll look up the time zone and keep track of it. You can set your $time zone to a location, and it will look up what it's supposed to be.
Hey, what are we doing with future dates in the US? And I mean, I didn't even follow the whole politics of
daylight saving.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're hooked into the IANA time zone database that updates a couple of times a year with the legislative schedules. So once it is fixed, when the daylight savings transition stops, we'll update accordingly.
No, but I mean, if I ask about a time in the future, does it right now say the US isn't going to have to? I just haven't followed whether it's fully ratified that the US is not going to have daylight savings time.
Yeah, it's not completely ratified in the US. There's still
Okay, fine.
It's likely going to be that.
All right, so we don't, this is a Alan Joyce specialty of when do we actually decide that it's over,
right,
so to speak.
Yeah.
And the answer is probably not yet.
Yeah.
Great stuff on dates. By the way, what is the general dates roadmap at this point? I mean, is there a lot more stuff that we think we have to do, or are we in pretty good shape here?
There are a handful of things we definitely have. We're keeping track of what Rob is doing with the generalized array framework, so that we can do things like data arrays. We can do arithmetic on big collections and conversions efficiently. There's a offshoot of data arithmetic that deals with modding dates that we want to look at, but we want to get the baseline for the current version of arithmetic down completely.
Okay.
So there may be a few new.
I think
there's a bunch more performance things also.
Yeah. We're trying to kind of work in pairs of improve performance, add new functionality where it makes sense.
Well, also the list plot being able to deal with dates is a big thing. And I wonder whether that's really been worked through, like this thing that I was mentioning about date histogram giving stupid, results.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we look at that, but
I mean, whatever. Let's take the 1 minute to just see what I'm actually talking about. Let me just see.
Yeah, to Roger's point, we want to make everything faster where reasonable. A lot of the dates code was written in top level and not super efficient, so we've been migrating things.
Okay.
And trying to optimize them as we go.
By the way, point for Avery. The fact that this formatting is like Neanderthal, ancient, and this doesn't have its number and so on. This needs to be regenerated.
Okay, I have that.
Okay, so let's see. If I say entity value, why doesn't that autocomplete? That also should autocomplete.
I'll try talking with Tony about that, or maybe.
Well, that's entity value. That's just an entity value issue that isn't, should be in user assistance. That's probably for Avery to report.
Okay.
Got it.
Oh gosh, I have to look up properties here.
Isn't it a library book?
Yeah, well, that's okay. That was nice that came out. I'm curious now, if I format the whole thing, is it going to be, I like our new thing down here. Not bad. That wasn't bad. That was 2,500 of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's try date histogram of this. Oh, that worked fine. Maybe it's well, it's a little weird. No, it didn't work so fine. It's a little weird. Why did it pick those dates, guys?
We can't answer that.
No, I understand, but I'm saying I don't know whether that's the date framework or whether that's the plotting code. Because I think if I take this, let me show you something. If
What's
I
the
say,
point you see, Stephen?
well, I wouldn't have picked 1730. I would have picked 1700, 1800, 17. I don't know what I would have picked, but these are weird. Why is it in blocks of 70? why are those differences 70 years? See what I'm saying? It's not a very natural
I see.
thing to plot. So if I say date value of %12, comma year, for example, and I get out a bunch of years there, and now I say histogram, okay, now I've got very reasonable ticks. See? So I think that's something related to dates. I don't think that's, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it's something in the charting code.
Yep.
I can check with Brett about it.
Well, but it's the interaction of that with the date specification.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. Okay, let's keep going. Geography. Okay. Is that new, geo-intersecting Q? So for example, if I say,
so so that's tentative. It doesn't exist yet. So yes, we want to separate that part from geo within Q. No, we don't have it yet. So geo within Q right now has a fully contained option, and the idea is to separate this part so that within Q really means within, exactly, and intersecting is overlapping.
Sounds good to me.
Yes, but it's not finished yet. So another thing is that we have linked now to this geos library, and this allows us to do some new computations that we didn't have access before, at least at the speed that we can do it now. Now, yes, this is important. We are about to finish the contract we had with Digital Globe. So we are changing to Mapbox, which will provide the new tiles. We haven't changed.
Running right now?
No, we are about to make that change in the next 1 or 2 weeks.
Okay.
And now the only.
I'm sorry. I just want to point out for Avery's benefit. Do you notice that this is offset? This look at that that control equal. The Eiffel is dropped down.
Yep, the orange equal and the
it's not
text in the box. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Keep going, Jose.
Yes. So we will have now Mapbox tiles, and so the main change here is that Mapbox requires credits being explicit in the map.
So you'll deal with that.
Exactly. Yeah. But there is one thing, which is that we can send a Packlet update to 13.0, but not before.
I see.
Yeah. So users of previous versions will have to update to get tiles now.
We should have a separate discussion about that.
Yep. So there are some minor updates in geographics related to zooms, and we will start using drop shadows.
But the real big thing is switching by default to vector graphics.
Yes.
How are we doing on that?
It's not finished yet. Our main problem is speed still.
I know that. Yeah.
So geographics right now is still.
Since it's not done now, Stephen, it cannot happen for 13 months.
I know, which is sad.
Yes.
But I mean, the important thing is also the styling of the layers and things.
Yes. Agreed.
What is vector labels?
Yes, that's what you want.
So let's see. So these will only show the labels. So this is a layer that only contains the labels. And so
why was that in my geo background autocomplete? That seems goofy.
No. You can now add a list of of vector backgrounds. And so, for example, you can have, say, I don't know, relief map and vector labels.
But Jose, the complaint that I have is what happens there. That's wrong. I don't want to see vector labels, the disembodied labels in my basic autocomplete.
Why not?
Because it's not what I want. I want a vector map. How do I get a vector map?
Oh, I see. Yes, vector classic or vector. I mean, you can click the arrows at the end and you see.
I know, but I don't want to have to click the arrows at the end. I don't want vector.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what. I mean, I don't know what we want to pick as the generic vector thing, but let's pick a generic vector. We should just say vector map or something as the generic, if you get what I'm saying, and put that in the autocomplete.
Mhm.
Boy, this is not fast.
Mhm.
Are we going to be able to speed this up, or is this going to be that the vector maps are, what the heck is going on here? Why is it spinning? Why was that spinning?
There is a part that happens the first time you use a style.
Well, but why is it spinning now when I'm just trying to resize this tile, this image?
Well, I think you chose a particularly dense area. So this map has lots of primitives inside. But yeah, I'm surprised that it is that slow.
It's really slow.
But there is another thing that we haven't, that I haven't seen the results, but we've talked a lot about this, which it sends a lot of label sets that is not needed, that it doesn't use.
Yes, that's true. It's sending lots of languages and things like that.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, so we got to optimize that.
Right.
But the other point is, I thought we were going to have all kinds of styling for all the different types of objects that appear in these maps, so you can style them as you want.
Yes, we are working on that. We have a PR in which we can specify, I don't know, of the order of more than 100 objects and give individual styles for that.
Classes of objects.
Yep.
Okay.
So this is another thing that we are working as we speak right now on updating the Gdal library, which is a library offering lots of new formats. And so we are about to, that's another thing that I don't have a page yet. So I assume we would talk about trees and dates in this meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. All right.
But no, it's totally fine to tell you what we are.
What is geoframe? Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea of geoframe is the idea of having like a frame, exactly like a frame, but rather than having projected coordinates, it would be marking latitudes and longitude lines and values.
I see.
So this is something that many users complain about, that they have a map, and because for low scales maps are given in Mercator coordinates, what they see in the maps in the frame are the Mercator latitude, for example, not the true latitude, and they get confused about that. So we need both frame and geoframe.
Wait a minute. So there'll be a rectangular frame that is the frame, and a geoframe will be a curvilinear type thing, curved thing that represents the actual lines of constant latitude and longitude. Is that right?
Yes, but not necessarily curvilinear. If you go to the previous map and you do frame goes to true, you will see the problem. Just add frame goes to true to that map.
Except I'm not going to do it with vector because it just put me off doing that.
Okay.
Unless it's going to be fast a second time, is it?
It is, because it doesn't have to download the tiles. I mean, it still has to process all the information again, but it doesn't have to download the tiles. So you don't see the blue window.
Okay. All right. So now you want me to say what? You want me to say?
Just add in the input frame goes to true. Now, the thing is that New York has a latitude of about 40.
Yep.
But by doing this, you will see that New York is falling at around Mercator latitude of 46 or something like that. 44. So those numbers are not true latitudes, are Mercator latitudes.
What the heck does that mean? I mean, so if I say New York, NYC, NYC, and I say latitude of that.
Exactly, it's 40.
That's crazy.
Well,
okay,
no.
What happened?
No. So the map has to be in projected coordinates because it's the only coordinates in which do you have a true Cartesian grid, uniform grid, etc. Right? So once we plot the flat map is always in Cartesian, in projected coordinates.
But I don't understand. I mean, this.
For example, draw a map of the whole world.
Okay.
Do geographics world, frame goes to true.
And by the way, we can compute in either the projected coordinates or on the ellipsoidal sort of coordinates.
No, all doesn't work. It's pinking. Do georange goes to all if you want.
Okay. That probably should work, by the way, the thing I did.
Sorry, and I forgot, do geoprojection goes to Mercator, because this one is showing correctly latitudes, because this is the do Mercator, second one. Okay, so you see how latitudes go beyond 150. So by default, the Mercator grid goes minus 180 to plus 180 and minus 180 to plus 180 in latitudes too, in vertical coordinates. And so in fact, the pole is at infinite Mercator latitude.
Yes. But that's not showing as that on this picture.
Exactly. The traditional thing is to cut the Mercator map square. And so 180 vertically. And because there is nothing beyond 85 degree, if you, why don't you click on the map, click period, and move the mouse. There you see both the latitude and the X and Y coordinates. You see?
Yeah.
So what we want to see is the latitude. I don't understand why it disappears when you start.
Yeah, why does it disappear?
It shouldn't.
Okay,
it wasn't happening before.
Avery, that's a bug.
Yep, that's new.
Got it.
Okay, so the X and Y are the coordinates with respect to this frame coordinate system. Is that right?
Exactly, the projected coordinate system, indeed.
Why is this ever useful, this coordinate system?
Because imagine that now you want to draw a line there, and you want to draw a perfect square, things like that. It's much easier to do in projected coordinates than in unprojected coordinates. So you need both. No matter what you do, you need both. And so that's why it's useful to have both frame and geoframe.
If I were to put in a polygon here,
yep,
with or a line or something, you're telling me that my line, a point, let's say a point, that point would refer to, let's say, 100, 0, 100.
That would be projected, indeed. Exactly. Now, if you do point of geoposition, now it will understand that that's a projected point, an unprojected
point of geoposition.
Point of geoposition, exactly. And do red, for example, so that you distinguish them.
My gosh.
So that's the way we allow.
Wait a minute. The other confusing thing is that the lat long is such that this is essentially a y coordinate first.
Exactly. Yep. So for the second one, you cannot go beyond 90. For the first one, you can go beyond 90.
Yeah. By the way, you should show an example like this in documentation.
Yeah, we do have, but still examples of this type, mixing both things.
Okay.
But users still get confused when they see these numbers.
So what's going to happen if you have a geoframe as well as a frame?
So the geoframe will go inside. The traditional thing is that the geoframe has the numbers inside the map.
I see. So I see. Oh, very interesting. Okay.
Do, for example, GeoGrid lines go to true or automatic? So you see how GeoGrid lines are spaced uniformly in latitudes, but not in projected coordinates.
Right, because that's a geo star thing. And if I were to say grid lines, do we support that here?
We support them, but there is an issue here, which is that they appear behind the map. They are there, but they are behind the map. We don't yet have a way of placing them in the front.
Okay. I understand. This makes sense. Pretty confusing. Okay.
Yeah, but it's a standard thing in geo that you always have to worry about two coordinate systems.
Right. Okay. This is going to be, this is obviously an important thing to have. All right, let me just have a quick look at astronomy, just because unless you're completely unready for this.
Well, we have the main thing, which is astroposition. There is a page for astroposition. And our plan for this release is to have this function, which is like the fundamental one. And it's a lot more powerful than geoposition.
I'm not seeing astronomy dot.
Astroposition. No, not the guide. No, look for the page astroposition.
Okay.
So if you go there and you can click that OR there, which is much better than the Apple search. Okay, yeah, that works too.
Okay, so astroposition is modeled completely on geoposition. And so the structure is the following. So the first thing is that this is going to describe positions in some sort of solar system centered world or universe. And so the idea is that the first argument has a number of coordinates. The second one is going to describe what we call the frame, and the third one is the coordinate system. And so the difference between frame and coordinate system is exactly like datum and projection. It's like physics and maths, if you want.
Okay.
The second contains the physics, the third contains the math.
Fair enough. So, okay, so this is with respect to the galactic frame.
Exactly.
So this is coordinate system what? Centered at the center of the galaxy or what?
The galactic frame is centered at the center of the solar system, and it's oriented towards the x-axis is oriented towards the center of the galaxy.
Okay.
So there are lots of kind of historical choices here, and the collection of frames is going to be large, of the order of 20 or so. And all these frames are moving with respect to each other, and some of them contain, say, relativistic corrections, others do not. For example, you see this epoch. So those are the moving frames. So you have to specify the orientation. They have weird names like this. MIMI means mean equatorial, mean equinox.
Okay.
It's standard for astronomers, but certainly non-standard for users who don't know about this. So we will support the standard names and some sort of generic names.
Just one question about dates and things.
Yep.
You know, I want to see the rotation of the galaxy. Can I have a date that's 100 million years in the future, or is that going to blow our system up?
I mean, the dates framework supports 100 million. That's not a problem. Now, what we don't have is a model of the rotation of the galaxy here. So how should I say? So we don't have models of the universe. So this doesn't have cosmology, but it has very precise models from NASA of the solar system.
Okay.
And so we are using some NASA libraries, which allows us to get very precise positions for all the planets and all the moons of the planets.
I see. So to find out the position of, so in principle, what I will be able to do is I will be able to say, in the end, there'll be an astro distance that will say astro distance Earth, Mars, and that will compute the current distance between Earth and Mars. Is that correct?
Right. Yes. So we will. These frames have parameters, like the projections have parameters. The frames have parameters, and you can specify there things like do I take into account the time that the light spends from one to another?
Yeah,
things like that.
But so this function though will just work, presumably. I understand there's a light travel time issue here and things like this.
Yep.
And presumably there's a version of this which is what the invariant. I don't even know how. Depends what you mean by this, right? If you have it really depends what you mean by this thing here.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So by this, you are effectively implying only the center of what you are looking at, but you have to specify also things like, do I take into account light traveling? Do I take into account deflection by the sun? Do I take into account things like that?
Oh gosh, that is crazy, right? The fact that the time, the simultaneity moment,
exactly, Yeah.
is affected by that.
Yeah. So we will not use full general relativity here. So the standard thing to do is to have an expansion, which is called post-Newtonian, and everything is prepared to handle the first order of post-Newtonian expansions, which is already complicated.
Yeah.
But that's what the International Union of Astronomy recommends at the moment, and we use exactly that model.
Okay. Okay. But okay, so then this will, so what's cool here is that presumably if I want to get, if I say astro position, and presumably there's the analog of geogrid position, which would give me, for Mars, it will give me the actual X, Y, Z coordinates or something. Maybe I don't care about those.
Not really. So the model I'm proposing here is to have a single function which handles the three things. So recall that in geo, we have geoposition, which handles the datum in the second argument, and geogrid position, which handles the projection in the second argument.
Yep.
But we needed an object that handled the three of them. And that's geogrid position. Geogrid position has the three arguments. So in a sense, geogrid position is our full general object.
Mm-hmm.
So astro position will have three arguments, and it can handle everything in the third argument, like even projections in the third argument. That's the model I am proposing.
I see, but because the third argument is your coordinate system, which could be a projected coordinate system onto like some. I mean, I don't know what the analog of Mercator projection of the celestial sphere is. What is all that stuff? I don't even know what that is.
It can be done. It can be done. For example, astronomers use a lot the Molvide projection for maps of the galaxy.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those. Yeah, like the cosmic microwave background is always plotted in one of those.
Exactly. That's yes. For maps of the whole universe and the galaxy, they use frequently Molvide. And so we will be able to say Molvide in the third argument. But the default is spherical. So the most standard coordinates are always spherical coordinates.
Okay.
And if you don't say anything, it's using spherical. Now, spherical have different names in different frames. So for example, you see in the example on the left, they are all spherical, but sometimes they are called right ascension declination, and sometimes they are called galactic longitude and galactic latitude. Mm-hmm. So depending on the frame, they have traditional different names.
Okay, another question.
Yeah.
By the way, this minus convention here, is that really right? That you have the separate minuses on all the coordinates?
That's what we currently do with mixed quantities. So I'm just following that. But I fully agree with you. The standard thing to do is to have just one at the front.
We should probably fix that. But I mean, also my question would be this hours, minutes, seconds thing. What capabilities do we have for dealing with those? Once you get one of these out, mm-hmm. Go ahead. Yeah.
So yes. So those are quantities. Those are quantity angles in right ascension. So do, for example, sun position. Sorry, what I mean? Yes. So do celestial system goes to.
In here?
Yes, an option celestial system goes to equatorial. The default is horizon. So you see, you get hours of right ascension. Again,
that's a quantity object. What's that?
Sidereal time also.
Yes, that's a very good example.
Just instead of sun position.
I want to go more, full galactic. Oops, what is it called?
We don't have that one yet. At the moment in celestial system in sun position, which is a former function, we only have two.
Okay.
But it could be generalized to any of our frames, indeed.
Right.
Yes, do sidereal time, as Nick says, or solar time. So you see, they are angles. All these things are angles. It's just that the tradition is to express them in units of right ascension.
I see.
If you do, what would be?
Can we do arithmetic with these in a reasonable way? So if that's an angle, mm-hmm. and if I say
do sine or cosine or whatever,
minus 30 degrees.
Not that one. Quantity 30 angular degrees. It's a quantity, right?
I see. But we can perfectly well do a sine of this. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. It's an angle. It's just that the tradition is to express this as the sidereal time of your meridian, of your local meridian.
Right. Okay, well, this is cool. So we'll have a proper review of this soon when you have the.
Yes, I'm about to push the whole thing.
Let's go back to the trees. Oh, unless no, I see.
No,
what does Astro observe?
Yes, the observe is a function. It's essentially the function that you would say, where do I observe this object from this frame? So where is Mars right now from this place? Right? If you don't say anything, you are assuming your
it's
position.
The analog of GeoGrid, the GeoGrid position, except that it's projected onto this, some coordinate system of the celestial sphere. Is that right? Or not?
Well, I mean, the idea is, how do I know where somebody in Mars would see Jupiter? So after observe is the function that allows you to say, observe from this other place, not from my location.
Oh, I see. So wait a minute. So it says, so astro position normally is with respect to a frame. And so what you're saying is it's a frame to frame thing. That is, well, that's not quite right either. No,
in a sense, astro observe is a particular case of astro position. If you specify the object being observed and the second argument is a frame, the frame could specify from where, right? The frame has an origin.
Yes.
But astro observe is some sort of syntactic sugar to just say, from where do I see this object? And then we will choose a good frame for you.
What do you mean? I mean, okay, look, basic point is people are on the Earth and they're at some geoposition on the Earth. So presumably, one of the things that, there is a frame for astro position that cares what your geoposition is.
Yes. Yeah.
And, in galactic coordinates, it doesn't really matter what your geoposition is. But,
right.
Okay. But so this is saying, the name Astro Observe does not make it for me. I mean, so this would return, like this is the analog of sun position or something. It's telling me from my current location. I mean, I could say sun position. I don't even know if I can do it. Can I say sun position from the moon?
No.
Right now? No. Okay, fine. But Astro Observe, what will be the syntax to say where is the sun in the Martian sky?
Well, it would be the first argument sun. The second, you would specify a location in Mars. And then it would return.
In which function? Sorry, in which function is this?
In Astro Observe.
I see.
Or, in astro position, you can specify a second argument, a full frame based on Mars, but you have to know. So in a sense, astro observe is some sort of shortcut.
But by default, it will return what? Altitude azimuth for my position on Mars for the sun, or will it return right ascension declination?
Well, it is some sort of automatic choice. I don't think we should use exactly the same choice everywhere, because, for example, imagine that you are observing from the solar system barycenter. Imagine that you are observing from the barycenter of Jupiter system. So those places are points perhaps in space. You see, so you can observe from places which are not associated to any body, to any physical body.
And those places, the only reasonable coordinate system is some solar system coordinates, not
exactly
not something where there's a ground underneath you type thing.
Exactly, yeah. So there is some sort of automatic choice of frame to be made there, some convenient.
How high do you have to be from the Earth for it not to use the Earth? I mean, in other words, if I'm in, it's like the GPS, which conveniently switches from daytime to nighttime mode when you go over the Terminator or whatever when you're driving, so to speak. And this, if you're in a convenient, if you take the system and you're in a rocket, there'll be some moment when it changes from the coordinate system for the Earth, right? How far do you have to be? If you're in an Earth orbit, is it going to use a coordinate system where your feet are planted on the ground, or is it going to use a coordinate system where you're free floating in the solar system?
Well, I mean, there are frames which rotate with the Earth and others that do not. So the standard thing when studying, for example, satellites, is to use those frames that do not rotate with the Earth. Because if you add the rotation of the Earth, then the orbit looks very strange.
Yes, indeed. Right. It'll have. Okay, but the point is, what I'm saying is, as you continuously vary the altitude above the Earth, there will come a point when your auto selector will change its default coordinate system.
Right. Yes.
Which is definitely on the weird side.
Yes, it's a bit like when we change the projections depending on the scale. There are some.
Yeah, but that's for
scales.
graphics.
Yep.
This is an actual result, because I mean, this is going to return. What is this going to return? It's going to return. What will this return?
An astroposition object.
I see. So its formatting can perfectly well say what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And these geoposition objects will be more complicated than, sorry, these astroposition objects will be more complicated than geoposition. So I'm planning to format them always, as you saw in the ref page, rather than in geoposition, we only format the multi-position cases.
Right. Okay, so look, Astro Observer, let's just think of a name here. So what that is what is the astro position of one object from another? Is that correct?
Yes, I would say the general case is a trajectory versus a point, right? So the idea is that you say Mars is not actually a point; it's a trajectory in space-time, right? So you give an event, a position and a time, and it will compute the light ray that intersects that line, and it gives you the intersection point.
Yes. But the simple-minded version of this is, what does thing X look like from place Y? And the fact that it's doing that.
And time.
No, but time is a problem because of simultaneity, because of the simultaneity conventions and the fact we've got light rays.
Yeah, but everything is moving. So when matters.
I see.
Exactly. What we see is the direction of the light ray as it reaches us. So not the actual position as it is right now.
I'm kind of thinking that some sort of relative, astro-relative okay, it's going to return an astro position, which is strange in its own right, because there is, for the object that you're looking at, the sun, let's say, there is an astro position for the sun, which is in some coordinate system, in some frame, et cetera. But now what you want to do is you're returning a courtesy modified astro position that has the right, is from the coordinate system. In other words, it's the same astro position. The sun is, you could take the astro position you get out from Astro Observer, whatever it is, and you could compute anything you want to know about the position of the sun from that. It's just that its default presentation is as appropriate from Mars as opposed to as appropriate from the Earth. Right?
Yep.
So
it's a way of changing the origin of the frame, if you want.
Right, but it doesn't really affect the position. That is, you can always reconstruct the genuine position of the sun, because astro position contains its frame information.
Yes.
So this is. Yeah,
but when you say the sun is not a position. The sun is a line in space-time, right? It's a trajectory.
Yeah.
So what we are doing here is a computation of where does the light cone from myself at this time intersect that line.
Yes. But is it returning? But it is still returning an astro position, is it not?
Yes.
Which is which is some kind of tangent object, because what it is, as you say, it is the local direction of the light ray where you are, as opposed to the originating sort of space-time position of the sun. Correct?
Yes.
It's where does the sun appear to be at my position.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's really a little different than an astro position. It's really some kind of tangential, local astro position, is it not?
I would say it's an astro position expressed in let's say retarded coordinates. So, right. So, given a point, you have the past light cone, the space-like plane, the simultaneity plane you talk about, and you have the future light cone. So we could also have an astro emit eventually. So if I emit a light ray from now, where does it intersect the moon or Mars? And that would be the future. That would be the reversed of this. With observations, we are always looking at past light cones. With emissions, we would be dealing with future light cones.
This is very obscure. I mean, the concept is clean. I just think the name is not. This is, where did it appear to be? Where did this object, to me here, where does the object appear to be, so to speak?
Yep.
There's got to be a name for this in astronomy, isn't there?
Observation and emission.
But
apparent.
It's not. It's apparent.
Apparent position is also called.
Maybe we should call it apparent astro position, or astro apparent position.
Don't you think that sounds obscure?
A lot less obscure than astro observe, which I don't understand at all. Astro observe is like wheel out the telescope as a
But it's sort of what it is.
It's not. If at best it's an observation. It's not. An observe would be a command, turn the telescope.
Fine. If it's positioned, then it's observation, maybe.
I don't think that's right, though. I think astro observation sounds like I took this plate on this night and I saw a comet in it.
Yes, but apparent is a weird name.
It's not so weird in astronomy. There's plenty of apparent magnitudes and all this kind of stuff. Apparent is as it appears to me, as opposed to absolute magnitude or whatever.
I see.
I think I was trying to avoid, again, having a multiplicity of X position, astro X position. But in a sense, we could even avoid having astro observe if we just make astro position to do those changes.
Yeah, to have a center.
We could say overload the second argument of astro position to do what astro observe would do, and just live with astro position, at least for the moment.
We could have a thing. We'd have an option to astro position called astro center or something like that, or astro origin.
Yes, in fact, the frames need to know their origin, of course. Frames need to know their origins, their orientation, and the time system they are using as a clock.
Right, but
as I said at the beginning, astro observe was to me some sort of syntactic sugar for astro position.
No, I understand that, and it's interesting for that. But there's there's an astro location that is the analog of our geolocation, is there not? Just like I can say geolocation, and that tells me where I am. I can reset, can't I?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, of course. We can take the information of now and dollar geolocation and compute a dollar astro position or astro location. Yes. Yeah, of course.
But then what I'm saying is, if we have that dollar astro position, which seems useful to have, then we can use an astro position without a dollar and reset that to be on Mars, for example.
Yep.
So we could then have, astro. Sorry, what did I say? I meant astrolocation. So it would be astro position, blah, 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 comma, astrolocation arrow, such and such.
Mhm.
And I can imagine when we have astrographics, we can have
Mhm.
something that says astrolocation arrow, such and such.
I see what you mean. I wonder whether we should simply allow dollar geolocation to be anywhere.
I predict that's going to cause trouble.
Mhm.
I mean, do we think our algorithms for projection are capable of being at the galactic center? I really doubt it. In other words, if you did
Right.
that, think about all the singularities we get in the
Yes. You're right. You're right. Yeah. Many geofunctions would be confused indeed.
right. So I think it's better to have I think it's cool to have an astro position. As the world gets more spacefaring, maybe that will get to be set. The question is when that first gets set by default on a computer. Not because it's clearly not going to use in deep space, for example. It's clearly not going to use ordinary GPS. Right?
Could you set your astrolocation to be the ISS?
You should be able to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
Right. And then that way,
Mhm.
right. Whereas you can't set your geolocation to be the ISS.
No.
So I think the big difference between astro and geo is that the time element is there. So, in the case of geolocation, we're just ignoring relativistic effects, and it's just you are in a certain place on the Earth or on the moon or whatever. Whereas in the astro position,
I have to run. I'm going to request one more of these.
okay. Can we go on with trees for a bit without you, or is that?
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. Go on.
Okay. See you later.
See you.
Yeah.
All right. This is great. All right. Let's try and dig a little bit into trees here. Sorry, I was avoiding the trees, in case there was a bird that was gonna whatever. Never mind. Okay. So which of these things have we not talked about? What's tree visualization?
It's a new guide page you haven't seen.
It's not a guide page, it's a function.
It's a guide page.
Well, there is a function called tree visualization as well. What the hell's that?
That is from when trees were still just working directly with data structures.
So you should probably remove this page.
Mhm.
Okay. That's amusing. Is that real tree structure?
It's in the trees context right now, and we're not proposing it for 13.1.
Tree outline, is that real?
Yes,
Has that been there before?
it's been there from the beginning.
I've never seen it.
Well, so we didn't look closely at it for 12.3, and we've had a few meetings since then with NOAA for an updated UX and design for it.
I don't think we should be talking about this yet. This is not ready.
Yeah, that was
No,
an
there's nothing new
ILD.
for tree outline for this version.
But but is it on a guide page?
Yes,
I'm not
it's
thrilled.
been on the main trees guide page under the visualization section. So
I'm
I also
really
put it
not
on this
thrilled.
new
I'm really
guide
not
page.
thrilled. I mean, this is really, oh boy. We need to look at this some more. I'm just very unconvinced about this.
I think the idea of having something like this is good. It's just that the visuals are not good enough. And Noah has much better suggestions.
I see.
Do you remember a meeting with John Fultz in which he was proposing a tree view function? And you wanted to connect both projects. And
Yes. Yes. I do remember that. But okay, hold on. Let's look at some of these others. Okay, so what's really new here? So tree label style, all this stuff.
All of those options listed there are new.
Okay, so tell me something. I want to take this tree and I want to just make dots for every node. How do I do it?
So you could already do that in 13 by just saying all goes to none.
No. That's a horrible solution. Is there a better solution?
Horrible by what metric?
Well, I mean, I just don't think anybody will ever get it. I mean, you say all arrow none. Like,
No, so tree element label.
yeah, that's pretty horrible. That's what I have to do.
Mhm.
Oops. And I don't think that's great either, because I don't want it to be that fuzz, that light. See what I'm saying?
So those are the same colors as when you don't have when you do have labels.
No, but that's probably wrong. It's probably wrong. They probably should be darker colors in the case where you don't have labels. Okay, that should be looked at. But I mean, the basic point is, I want some way to show this like a graph, but it is in a tree structure. See what I'm saying? And if I say tree graph, it's going to blow it up. Am I making sense?
I mean, so are you wanting to do like a shape, like different vertex shapes?
Yeah, I want to draw this.
Right. So now we have multiple new options for that. So you can do like tree element shape or tree element shape function and specify those. Like change tree element label to tree element shape function.
That's amusing, but it's not what I wanted. Let's go back to this question. I just want to make it like, look, if I take this thing and I say tree graph, okay, that's a form of formatting. I want to get that formatting for the original tree. Because this, I don't know, is this the same? Did this have the same coordinates?
Should.
Well, that's okay, I guess.
So the default shape function for graph is just called automatic, and I'm using automatic for trees default shape function. So I don't have a name for the default shape function that graph uses, but you can use any shape function that graph supports in tree.
Well, we needed, graph default or something as a name. But the thing that I'm concerned about is, okay, so I want to make some very big trees. Okay, so I want a really big tree. I'm going to make a really big tree, and I want to make it without all this gunk in it. Okay, so I mean, I just want an easy way, because you're thinking of trees where everything is labeled, but I'm thinking of trees as something where they are more kind of mathematical structures. So let's say I've got a tree with 1,000 elements, and I mean, this is pretty horrifying. Tree element style, arrow, all arrow, none. Why is this so slow? Oh, for goodness sake. What did this just do?
None is not a style.
What the heck? What am I supposed to do here? Tree element. What is it?
Red instead of none.
No, I don't want to do that. I want to just have simple dots for every node. How do I achieve that?
That's a shape function.
That's not good enough. It's too obscure.
I mean, the style is not going to control the shape. Shape is going to control the shape. I don't understand. For graphs, we have this notion of vertex labels. The difference is that there is a default appearance for a node in the graph, and the label is then labeling the node rather than being in the node, so to speak. Mm-hmm.
So
that's
for tree
element label option.
Okay, tell me how to do what I want to do here. I just want a dot for every node. How do I do it?
But as I said, we would need a named shape function that matches the graph. But you could do, for example, the string square, and that'd be close.
Tree element
Instead of
shape
none.
function.
Yeah.
Like this,
Mm-hmm.
like this.
Yes.
It's really slow. Why is it so slow? Why is this so
It is
slow? Should not be slow. I mean, this is the default case. For any big tree, you do not want to label the elements in the big tree. Okay, what the heck happened here? What did this do? See, this is full of garbage.
Well, because labels are shown by default.
Okay, but I'm telling you, we need a way to get something
So you're
where
saying
you're
you
just
want an
showing the
option-
mathematical tree.
You want an option that controls both the label.
That is correct. I want a simple way to get the look. There are
That sounds like a plot theme.
Well, it's not going to be a
Some
plot.
kind of
It's going to be
theme.
some kind of option that just switches off, because I'm telling you, there are two uses of trees. I mean, I've been using these trees and they're very nice, well done, but there are two uses. Number one, it's a tree where every node has a meaning, right? That's case number one. That's the case you've tackled. Case number two, it is a mathematical tree where I don't care what the nodes are called, right? And you're not handling that case properly. So I'm saying that's the case, which is much more like this case.
I mean, I don't agree with that. Like, random tree is a generator for labeled trees. There could just as well be a tree distribution that generates just pure trees, like you're saying, and then you don't have this problem at all because there's just no data there. But by default, if you have data in the tree, it shows it by default.
Well, fair enough. That's a reasonable argument. But then random trees should have a way, and other tree generators should have a way to not generate.
We added one to expression tree, for example.
Okay, let me see that. So if I say, I mean, okay, but here for random tree, how would I blow away? Let's look at random tree for a second. Maybe there's an easy way of changing random tree so it can deal with this. Blow off.
So I think in the first argument where you can currently give an in, eventually you could give a symbolic tree distribution.
Well, we're not going to that. No, but this is a much simpler case. This is an unlabeled tree. It's a very simple concept. And this is what we want. I'm not even sure that the default is right to give a tree with actual explicit labels like this. In fact, I kind of think it's wrong.
Well, I think the idea of creating tree was precisely to have the labels in
Right.
Okay, but I'm telling you, we need a notion of a tree in which there are not labels most of the time.
Yes.
So how do we get rid of the labels?
I mean, you can map a constant function null here, and you'll get the same thing. Like if you have tree with one argument, then there's no data. We specifically made made the data optional so that it was easy.
Okay. So then let's say, if I say here tree map of none, is that right?
Null ampersand.
Okay. Apart from the fact that this is too light, this is a good result. Well, and these things are too big. So if I say tree element size,
I think that
that needs to work.
Yes.
Why didn't that work?
Oh, tree map doesn't take tree options.
Why not?
Only things that construct trees currently take tree options.
Well, doesn't it construct a tree? Why doesn't tree take
No, I mean things like random tree, nest tree, expression tree.
Why doesn't tree take a tree option?
Tree does.
Why doesn't this work? Why is it red?
Bracketed wrong.
Tree element size.
Oh, well, I think the documentation's not
okay, fine.
in the build yet.
Okay, but so here that doesn't seem right. Doesn't seem to be working.
Right. So the size isn't working with the default shape currently, but if you specify a different shape, that's working.
Okay, but so it needs to work.
Mhm.
And I'm not convinced that these default shapes are right. I think they should be smaller, and I think they should be more like this. You just don't want to see. I mean, you just want to see the structure of the tree. You can see. You don't need to see this very, precious squares and circles type thing.
Mhm.
The point that I want to get across.
So then, if you removed all the labels, these nodes would be smaller, and
I
that
did
would-
remove the labels.
Yeah, I'm saying your suggestion is to have smaller.
Yes, that's what I'm suggesting. I think the thing you have to think about is there are mathematical trees where you never care what nodes are labeled.
Mhm.
See what I'm saying? And I'm going to compute properties of these trees and so on, but I never care what they're labeled. So we need to support that well. And I think what we need to do is to have random tree do something like, if we say something like, I don't know whether the right thing is arrow none or something. I think don't really like that very much. How do we get something which says, I personally think the default for random tree may be incorrect.
You can say tree element label arrow.
No. None of those things. This is a very basic case, right? This is a mathematical tree where nobody cares about the labels, and we're not going to do any tree element label nonsense.
So you want a special syntax in the first argument for the.
Probably it's in the first argument. I'm not certain where it should be, but I'm saying we need something which says this is a mathematical tree. It doesn't have any labels. It's just a structure.
Mm-hmm. And my point is that we'll have a different distribution than the labeled one.
Why?
So it's just an additional tree.
Why?
Well, because if it's not labeled, then you can only distinguish two trees by their shape. But if they are labeled, you can distinguish them by their labels as well.
Okay. I understand that claim. I think this requires a bit more thought. But I'm saying, for goodness sake, let's figure out how we support well pure mathematical trees. And don't tell me to set 7 options with lots of weird fiddly stuff in them, because it's not what people are going to want.
You want to look at expression tree?
Yes.
The source documentation. Right. So there's this new structure. If you say null in the second argument, then it just gives you an unlabeled tree.
So that's a different, I see, that's null.
So name aside, we just added that as an additional structure, so you can just directly get the unlabeled.
Yeah, okay. So what you're saying is if we say, some random thing, and then we say expression tree.
Yep.
That's nice. That's what I wanted, except that I don't like these shapes here.
Mm-hmm.
This should be darker. It's really just way too ethereal. Makes sense. But the functionality is good. This is exactly what I wanted.
Yep. And also expression tree now has the heads option.
Good. This is good. This is nice. This is very useful. All right, let's just fix the what it does by default when it formats with everything as. It's going to require a little bit of cleverness with graphic design, because if some of the nodes are blank but others are not, this is not an unreasonable way to do it, probably. But if they're all blank, I'm a little confused what to do here. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, we might need a compromise that just works in both cases.
Probably yes. Which I think the compromise that will work is to darken the node and have it be smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And that will look okay in both cases. Okay, so then maybe what we want to do Another possibility, like we've done with graphs, where we have directed graph, undirected graph. Maybe we want to have a thing called unlabeled tree or something that you just wrap around a tree and it'll just go boom and blow all that stuff away.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be a perfectly fine solution as far as I'm concerned.
Is this a converter or a container?
Converter.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, undirected graph is a converter.
Yeah.
I think that's a good solution.
Yep.
And that way we can, now you're right that we can be fancier with the distribution of random tree and so on, but we can still say unlabeled tree.
Maybe unlabeled tree can set some options.
In terms of, yes, absolutely. It can set some options on the tree that it has been fed. That will be useful for it to do. But at the very least, it should just go through and do this effectively, tree map of null, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
That will solve that will solve the most basic version of that problem, I think. Now, it's getting, the whimsy is just catching up on us. Tree leaf count, whatever. It does count the actual leaves, the things at the end, right?
Yes. It's the analog of leaf count.
Okay. So this is what we discussed before, like root tree and so on, which I think is good. Question, okay, let's take a little look at tree expression tree for these cases. Okay, so I should probably save this file as well. What should I be saving this under? Trees, probably. What should I be saving this under?
You can save it under the trees folder.
Okay. Okay, so let's take this and okay, so you're telling me I can look at all these cool things. Okay, so for example, I could take this notebook and I could say, how do I get this notebook? I say notebook get, right?
Input notebook or
notebook get of evaluation notebook.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I say expression tree of that. Is that correct?
Comma the string notebook.
Hello, computer. What just happened? Oh my gosh, something's spinning still. Is this going to re-render the notebook within the notebook within the notebook in some kind of Drost effect thing?
No, it doesn't try to render the notebook, but it's going to try to display a tree that shows all the boxes in standard form.
I mean, in standard form. You mean it's going to display? Okay, so this is pretty dead in the water here. I don't know what
the data of the leaves is like the raw, like the boxes at the bottom of the notebook.
Okay,
Is
so
the geographics going to mess that up?
Oh yeah, it's got all kinds of weird stuff in it, hasn't it? But now what we're probably going to want, we may have to kill this, but what we're probably going to want here is notebook cells, notebook. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't want, in many cases, you don't want to go below the cell level.
Yeah. So the hierarchy that this currently handles goes notebook, then cell group, and then everything below that is a leaf.
Oh, okay. So this won't actually dive into. So I don't understand why it's spinning like this. It's not going to dive right into the expressions in the cells.
Right.
So why is it spinning? It's just a bug. Up.
No.
That was just completely dead in the water. Okay, let me just start a notebook and just do a trivial thing in it. Okay, what the heck is that? That is a completely unuseful object. What is that?
The same comment I had about XML holds for this. I think we need formatting functions that format the payloads better.
Yeah, but this is also going below the cells. It's wrong.
No, it's
Shouldn't be
not.
doing that.
It's not.
It is. Look at that. It's got box data in the leaves. That's below the cells. The cell is at this level.
That's what I said is the hierarchy goes notebook, then cell group, and then everything below that is a leaf.
Okay, so it probably should stop at the cells, or at least there should be a way of telling it to stop at the cells. Also, this is just.
Well, then you're only going to have a tree with one level of hierarchy.
That's not true. You can have cell groups.
I don't know what so are you saying that the data of the cell should be in the parent rather than there being an additional leaf?
Yes. Yes, because what you want to see is the cell group structure. That's the main thing you want to see in a case like this.
So, okay, so the way I'm doing this now handles all cell expressions exactly the same way, but this would be special handling for the cells immediately above.
How do I get this to make this thing have no labels?
Tree element label.
No. I want it at this level. See, this is the point. You're not understanding. I'm sorry. The most of the time when I use trees, I don't want.
Well, then you apply unlabeled tree to this.
Okay. All right. Fine. I'm not. Okay. Fine. You don't even want to generate these. I mean, these labels are just a mess. Okay. So tree element label arrow all arrow none. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what I want to see is the hierarchy of section headings and so on. That's what's really useful to see. Anything below that at the level of boxes is almost certainly not useful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is an outline that is very useful, but only at that level. And I would predict that 90% of the time what I'm going to want is something like this, possibly with some tooltips.
So this currently doesn't try to understand things like sections and subsections. Is that what you're wanting?
It does need. It needs to understand the cell grouping. That's it. That's all it needs to understand.
This just blows out all of the cells and cell groups into subtrees, is what it currently does. It sounds like you're wanting something.
No, I want the cell grouping. I want the cell grouping to be illustrated in the tree. That's the point.
Yeah,
if I have a section,
cell group data nodes here.
Right, and they're hierarchical, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if I were to put a section heading in here, and run this again, I think that did what I wanted, except it went too deep. And I don't know, did that do what I wanted? Okay, so it's got the first cell. Okay, so the first cell here, apart from the fact that I've got those little tentacles hanging off, I don't even know what that, oh, I see, that's the cell group. No, I don't understand this. What's that node?
Be easier with the labels.
Haha. I don't understand what that node is. I don't know what that node
goes to placed of. Well, actually, that's too complicated.
No, but look, I don't know what that node is.
There should be a. I need to think through this, but there needs to be an easy way to make this show up in tooltips.
Yes. But I mean, if I even say head here, how do I get the head of that? So I say all arrow. Can I say
do label function and do head?
Why can't I do this? X blank colon equals head of X.
Because X is a position.
Can I do it with a hash something or other?
No.
Okay, so what do I want to do?
Tree element label function
goes to
all goes to head.
That's extremely unuseful. Well, let's say all goes to, what do I want to say? Hash sub 2, 1. No, hash sub head of hash sub 2. Oh, I don't understand what this is doing. I don't know.
Do all goes to first.
Well, hard to.
So because this went too deep, you get garbage at the bottom. But this will just show you the symbols for notebook and cell group.
How do I get it to not go so deep with expression tree? Is there a way of giving a level spec in the expression tree?
Not yet.
Should be probably. Can I do this with root tree?
Mm-hmm.
How would I reject the
root tree of
bottom?
that?
Well, how many levels of root tree do I want to do?
Try 2.
Something went wrong. Okay, this is still very messy. Right, and so, okay, so look, I think just to talk roughly about what these things should do. I mean, notebook, in my opinion, the number one useful thing is, well, okay, actually, do you have text structure now as trees?
Yeah, you can give that as a second argument in expression tree.
But it won't do the parse. It'll do, I don't understand.
Oh, no. It's not hooked up to text structure itself, but you can convert the output of text structure into a tree using expression tree.
Okay, so now expression tree of that comma text structure, right?
Mm-hmm. Or text element.
You know, I am happy to say that even though I am slouching, I can read the input-output labels. So that's an achievement. Of course, it really is a sign. Don't slouch. That is very ugly. We're not quite there yet with this. I mean, maybe it's a labeling issue.
I think so. For all of these, I just took all of the data that's in the expression and just dumped it into the data.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, in this case, right, with the right labeling of clause and so on, that would look pretty good. I mean, if we mimic this effectively, I mean, in this case here, we've got constituent graph rather confusingly is different. And by the way, okay, so that's sort of the thing. I don't know why that's darker colored. I'm surprised by that. But that's kind of the thing we're going for the tree, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Although that particular thing really is a graph, but we should have a tree version of this. And I mean, that's what's really confusing because we've got the constituent tree.
The constituent tree returns a text element.
Right. So we're going to have to come up with another name for what text structure to make it return an actual tree. And we may be able to mess with the word constituent. Parse tree or something. I'm not sure. But I mean, I think this is roughly what we're going for in terms of the look of the default expression tree from this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the nice thing with both of these, like all of the options and expression tree, is that we could have expression tree produce things with all of the proper options.
Yes, I understand.
And preserve the options while you're doing operations with them.
That's good. And that happens most of the time. Most operations you do will preserve the options.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just tree-to-tree transformations, right? It's not like, I mean, in the case of, let me ask this question. So in the case of graphs, we have many things like graph union and so on. We don't have a tree gluing thing yet, do we?
A what?
Tree gluing. That is, you attach a tree. You say, I want this subtree at this position.
I think that's tree insert.
Okay. Then explain to me how the options work with tree insert.
So I haven't
I think
implemented,
whatever is
I haven't
there.
implemented it yet, but you insert a tree with some options into some other tree with some options. And the way we set up the options is that they are inherited. If you don't specify options, you take the options that are specified by your parent.
I see.
and
By your
you-
parent nodes. And so it's like a waterfall cascading down the tree. If the root node of the subtree is red, then all the
Well, so if you just say red, then only the root will be red. But if you say all goes to red, then everything will be red. But
In
a
that
subtree
subtree.
can still override that.
right. So all is blue at the top, and then all is red of the subtree you inserted, and then it's blue for a while, and then it's red in the subtree.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, we should probably wrap here, but I mean, this looks close, honestly, except for things that I mean, I we clearly need to go through. Maybe you need to do another iteration for a few days on these other things here, and see if you can at least get them halfway reasonable.
Mhm.
That makes sense. And then, oh, are you putting in the one for trace? That's cool. If you can do that.
And I'll put trace tree and trace graph in the WFR for now.
Fine, that would be cool. I mean, that stuff was going very well. If you can figure out how to merge it with what Nick is doing, I think we're really going to have a great setup there. Have you been interacting with Nick about that stuff at all?
Not on that. We're meeting tomorrow to discuss the pure math package.
Okay. Which is about
That connects to Jonathan's CT framework, but also Nick's multi stuff. And we also have Tony and Michael there for Sparkle.
cool. Very nice.
And hierarchical entities.
Mhm.
Right. It's a sample of hierarchical entities. Good point. All right, we should wrap here, but let's come back with in a few days, I guess, because we're closing 13.1. It'd be nice to see an iteration of these expression tree things.
Mhm.
Seem reasonable?
Yep.
Okay, nice stuff. All right, thanks everybody. See you later.